The first time I saw my mother's face truly lose control was at 35,000 feet. Not at a funeral. Not at a wedding. Not even when my father walked out on us and left nothing but a voicemail and a half-paid mortgage. No. It was when a flight attendant in crisp navy gloves leaned toward our row in Paris first class and said, softly but clearly, "Madam, I'm going to need you to come with me." And my mother, Dr. Cynthia Grant, the woman who could silence a room with a smile, didn't smile. She stared. Then she stood up so fast her champagne tipped, and the gold bubbles ran across the white tablecloth like spilled secrets. Across the aisle, my Aunt Patrice, who wears diamonds the way other people wear lip balm, grabbed her Birkin like she was about to flee a crime scene. And my cousin Darius, the family's golden boy, made a sound I'd never heard from him before. A whimper. I sat perfectly still in my seat, legs crossed, hands folded, like I was watching a movie I'd already seen twice. Because I had. I just didn't expect the climax to arrive before the meal service. The flight attendant held her posture politely, but her eyes flicked to the man in a tailored charcoal suit standing behind her. Not airline crew. Not security. Something else. Corporate. Legal. The kind of man who looks like his watch has a lawyer. He nodded at my mother. Dr. Grant, he said in a low voice that still carried over the hum of the engines. We need to speak with you regarding a matter of identity verification and a financial instrument linked to this itinerary. Identity verification. Financial instrument. That's rich, considering my family has built an entire lifestyle out of counterfeit affection and stolen opportunities. My mother's mouth opened then closed. Behind her, the overhead bins clicked as someone shifted. Tiny sounds suddenly deafening in the hush of luxury. Even in first class, people know when drama is expensive. Patrice tried to laugh. Oh, come on. Cynthia, you probably booked it under your maiden name again. You know you do that. The man didn't blink. I'm afraid this isn't a booking issue. Darius leaned forward, voice low. What is happening? The man's gaze shifted briefly to me. And that was the moment my mother's eyes snapped to mine. Sharp. Suspicious. Accusing. Like she could smell betrayal the way sharks smell blood. But I didn't flinch. I only lifted my glass and took a slow sip of water, because the kind of revenge I prefer is the kind you stay hydrated for. My mother turned back to the man. This is absurd. We are on an international flight. Whatever you think. He held up a thin folder. Dr. Grant, please. Let's not raise our voices. Then he said the sentence that blew a hole through the cabin's calm. The account used to secure this trip has been flagged. Funds were traced to an estate currently under dispute. The beneficiary has filed an emergency injunction. My aunt's jaw dropped. My cousin's face went pale. And my mother's voice came out like broken glass. Which beneficiary? The man glanced down then up again. Ms. Amara Grant. That's me. My mother's head turned so slowly toward me it looked like something out of a horror film. I smiled. Small. Sweet. The kind of smile you give when you've been waiting for the plane to hit cruising altitude. Because at 35,000 feet, there's nowhere to run. And my family? They were about to find out that the revenge plot they packed in their designer carry-ons had been unpacked, item by item, by the very woman they tried to leave behind. Me. But to understand why my mother's hands were shaking, why Patrice was whispering prayers she didn't believe in, why Darius looked like his soul had tried to exit through his pores, you have to rewind. Back to the beginning. Back to the day my family tried to bury me alive, socially, financially, emotionally, and accidentally handed me the shovel. My family has a tradition. Not holidays. Not Sunday dinners. They have a tradition of selective love. Love you when you're useful. Ignore you when you're inconvenient. Erase you when you're dangerous. I became dangerous the day my grandmother, Evelyn Grant, chose me. Grandma Evelyn was not a warm woman. She wasn't the type to bake cookies or knit you sweaters. Her affection came in the form of brutal honesty and very expensive advice. She built the Grant family wealth from nothing but a nursing degree, a sharp brain, and a refusal to marry for survival. She ran her medical clinics like a queen runs a kingdom. Calm voice, Ern Law. My mother, Dr. Cynthia Grew up resenting her because Grandma Evelyn never fawned, never begged, never praised Cynthia for simply existing. My Aunt Patrice resented her because Grandma didn't fund her entrepreneurial ventures, which mostly consisted of online shopping with motivational captions. And my cousin Darius, my aunt's son, resented her because Grandma Evelyn saw right through him. I, on the other hand, I was the only one who didn't try to impress her. Maybe because I'd already stopped hoping for approval in that family. I moved out at 18, paid my own way through school, built my own career in marketing and brand strategy. I learned early that if you want something in the Grant family, you can't ask. You have to take. But I didn't take from them. I took from the world. And I did well. Then my grandmother got sick. Not slowly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a candle running out. She called me 2 weeks before she died. Amara, she said, voice thin but still commanding. Come to the house. Alone. I drove there after work, still in my blazer, still wearing the kind of heels that say, I don't have time for nonsense. When I walked into her bedroom, my mother was already there. So was Patrice. So was Darius. The holy trinity of entitlement. My mother looked up like I'd tracked mud onto her carpet. Why are you here? She asked, as if her mother hadn't summoned me. Grandma Evelyn didn't even let me answer. I asked her. Silence. Patrice did that fake laugh she uses when she's nervous. Mom, are we having a meeting? Because I wasn't told there'd be a meeting. Grandma Evelyn's eyes cut to her. Patrice, you're never told anything. You don't listen. I swallowed a smile. Darius leaned back in the chair, acting bored, but I saw his fingers tapping his knee. He wanted money the way thirsty people want water. Then Grandma Evelyn said, Amara, sit. I sat. My mother's mouth tightened. Patrice's eyes narrowed. And Darius looked at me like I was a fly that had landed on his dessert. Grandma Evelyn reached for her bedside table and slid a folder toward me. Read it. I opened it. Estate documents. Beneficiary lists. Trust language. And there it was, clear as daylight. Primary beneficiary, Amara Grant. My throat went tight. My mother went rigid. Patrice's hand flew to her chest like she'd been shot. Darius's eyes widened, then sharpened into calculation. My mother spoke first. That has to be a mistake. Grandma Evelyn didn't look at her. No. Patrice tried. Mom, come on, I'm your daughter. Grandma Evelyn gave her a look like, and? Darius leaned forward. Grandma, you can't just. You, Grandma Evelyn said, cutting him off, are a charming boy who will be a dangerous man. Darius's smile froze. Then my grandmother turned to me. You're the only one who never asked me for money, she said. You asked me for advice. That's why you'll protect what I built. My chest burned with something unfamiliar in that family. Being chosen. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Because I knew. The Grants don't respect tears. They respect leverage. After that day, my family treated me like I'd committed treason. They didn't say it out loud, of course. They're too polished for that. But they did what wealthy families do when they want to punish you without getting their hands dirty. They isolated me. My mother stopped inviting me to family events. Patrice blocked my number for mental peace. Darius started spreading rumors about me at church, of all places, because nothing says godly like financial slander. Then, after Grandma Evelyn died, they made their move. It started with a phone call from my mother, crying, which should have been my first clue it was a trap, because my mother doesn't cry unless she's trying to moisturize her guilt. Amara, she whispered, we need to meet. There's been a complication with the will. A complication. That's what she called it. Not, your grandmother chose you. Not, we're angry. Not, we plan to destroy you. A complication. I met her at a private club downtown. Darkwood. Soft jazz. Men in suits who look like they treat women like optional upgrades. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin. I didn't want this, she said. I waited. She leaned closer. Your Aunt Patrice she's unwell. She's devastated. And Darius, he's spiraling. I sipped my coffee. And what does that have to do with me? My mother's voice dropped. Your grandmother's clinics are tied to the family name. If this becomes a public legal battle, it could ruin everything. Everything, I repeated. She nodded. The clinics. Our reputation. Our church ties. Our image, I said, because that's what she meant. She exhaled shakily. Amara, if you would just sign a temporary transfer. Just until we settle everything. And there it was. The ask. The steal. The family revenge plot. They didn't want Grandma Evelyn's choice to stand, so they planned to rewrite it using my signature. But here's the thing about me. I'm not a victim. I'm a strategist. So I smiled. And I said, of course. My mother's eyes lit up with relief. And that's when I knew. They thought I was stupid. They thought I was soft. They thought I was still the little girl who wanted to be included. But I was something else now. I was the woman who'd learned that sometimes the best way to catch a liar is to hand them the microphone. I didn't sign anything that day. I pretended to. I let my mother slide papers across the table. Let her talk about temporary arrangements. Let her paint the story like we were protecting Grandma Evelyn's legacy. Then I said sweetly, I'd feel better if my lawyer reviewed this. My mother stiffened. A lawyer? I blinked innocently. Yes. Isn't that normal? She forced a laugh. Amara, darling, we're family. I leaned in. Exactly. That's why I need a lawyer. Her smile thinned. But she agreed. Because she couldn't refuse without showing her hand. So I took the documents home. And then I did something my family never expected. I called Grandma Evelyn's old attorney. The one my mother hated. The one Patrice called rude. The one Darius once tried to flirt with and got politely destroyed. His name was Malcolm Reese, and he had the voice of a man who has never once cared if you like him. When I told him what was happening, he didn't sound surprised. Your grandmother predicted this, he said. She set contingencies. Contingencies. My stomach tightened. Yes, he said. She said, and I quote, if Cynthia tries to steal this, let her hang herself with the rope she brings. I let out a laugh, sharp, delighted. Goo, eu whispered. E miss here. Malcolm said, you're going to need patience. Oh, I said. I have patience. What I don't have is mercy. He chuckled once. Good. Because here's what she left you. And that's when the game shifted. Grandma Evelyn didn't just leave me money. She left me instructions. A legal trap. A set of staged releases. Partial access, partial disclosures, triggers based on attempted fraud, and a separate emergency file that would activate if anyone tried to coerce or impersonate me. In other words, Grandma Evelyn didn't just choose me. She trained me. Now, the problem was my family didn't know any of this. And I was going to keep it that way. So I acted. I played the role they cast me in. The confused niece. The emotional daughter. The I just want peace woman. I let my mother believe I was about to sign. I let Patrice call me selfish on the phone. I let Darius post vague Instagram stories about snakes in your own bloodline, which was hilarious coming from a man whose personality is basically a crypto scam with teeth. Then they escalated. They invited me on a trip. A family healing trip. To Paris. First class. Luxury. All expenses paid. My mother called me like she was announcing a miracle. We're going to France, she said, voice bright. Just us. A reset. We need it. I paused. Why Paris? She laughed. Why not? Your grandmother always said Paris changes people. I almost choked. My grandmother used to say Paris changes people because it shows you who they are when they're away from their usual audience. And my mother was bringing me to Paris because she thought she could control me there. New city. New pressure. No support. She thought I'd sign the papers abroad. Away from Malcolm Reese. Away from my usual routine. She thought she could corner me between the Eiffel Tower and a 5-course meal. So I said yes. Because you don't cancel the flight when the villain invites you onto the stage. You show up. In costume. With your own script. I forwarded the itinerary to Malcolm. He replied with one line. Perfect. Then, 2 days before the trip, Malcolm sent me a secure message. Your family has accessed a portion of the estate account using an intermediary. My chest went cold. They'd already started siphoning. They didn't even wait for my signature. So Malcolm and I did what Grandma Evelyn would have wanted. We tightened the net. We flagged the movements. We filed preliminary motions. We placed watch notices with the relevant institutions. We let the system do what it does best when you give it paperwork. Move quietly until it slams shut. And while my family packed designer luggage and plotted my humiliation, I packed something else. Evidence. Receipts. A calm smile. And one more thing. A printed copy of Grandma Evelyn's contingency letter, sealed in an envelope. Not for me. For them. Because revenge doesn't land if you don't let them understand why they're falling. Boarding day felt like theater. My mother arrived in a cream coat, like she was auditioning to be someone's rich wife in a French movie. Patrice wore sunglasses indoors, because she thinks mystery is a personality trait. Darius had on a fitted blazer and the kind of cologne that screams, I'm trying to outrun my own insecurity. I wore black. Simple. Clean. Sharp. My mother kissed my cheek with performative warmth. I'm so glad you came. I smiled. Me too. Darius muttered. Let's just have a good time. Patrice snorted. Please. As if she knows what a good time looks like. I turned to her. You're right, Patrice. My hobbies don't include debt and delusion. She gasped. My mother hissed, Amara. I shrugged. I'm just adjusting to the Paris vibe. We boarded. First class smelled like money and lavender. We settled in. Champagne appeared. Patrice toasted. To family. I lifted my glass. To truth. Darius's laugh was too loud. Okay, Shakespeare. Then the meal service began. And so did the unraveling. Halfway through the flight, my mother's phone buzzed, despite airplane mode, because Cynthia Grant believes rules are for people without a surname. She glanced at it and went still. Then Patrice's phone buzzed. Then Darius's. One by one, the color drained from their faces. I didn't touch mine. Because Malcolm told me exactly when the alerts would hit. The flight attendant appeared. Then the man in the charcoal suit. Then the words. Flagged funds. Estate dispute. Emergency injunction. Then my name. Ms. Amara Grant. My mother spun toward me. What did you do? I met her eyes, calm as a locked door. I protected what's mine. Patrice hissed. You set us up. I laughed. No. I watched you walk into your own trap. There's a difference. Darius leaned forward, voice frantic. Amara, listen. This is a misunderstanding. We were just borrowing. I offered. Reallocating? Temporarily transferring? Protecting the family image. My mother flinched because I used her exact words. The man in the suit cleared his throat. Dr. Grant, Ms. Patrice Carter, Mr. Darius Carter. Please come with me. We need to document statements. My mother's voice broke. We are not criminals. I tilted my head. No, Mom. You're worse. Criminals usually have the decency to admit what they are. Patrice tried to grab my wrist. You can fix this. Tell them it's fine. I pulled my arm away gently. I can. But I won't. Her lips trembled. Why are you doing this to us? And that question, that audacity, nearly made me laugh myself into a coughing fit. Why? I repeated. Then I leaned in, voice low. Because you tried to erase me. And you thought you could do it with a pen. My mother's eyes flashed with rage. You ungrateful. Ungrateful. I cut in softly. For what? The years you punished me for being chosen? The lies you spread? The temporary transfer? You wanted me to sign like I was signing a birthday card? Darius swallowed hard. We can work something out. I nodded. Oh, we can. We already did. I reached into my bag and pulled out the sealed envelope. Patrice stared at it like it was a grenade. My mother's eyes narrowed. What is that? I slid it across the table. A letter from Grandma Evelyn, I said. She wrote it for this exact moment. My mother's fingers shook as she opened it. Her eyes moved across the page. Then, her face cracked. Not grief. Fear. Because Grandma Evelyn's letter wasn't emotional. It was surgical. It laid out their pattern. Their manipulation. Their attempts to pressure me. It named names. It referenced dates. And it ended with a line that made my mother's mouth go dry. If you're reading this, Cynthia, it means you tried to steal from your own daughter. You always confuse control with love. Now you'll learn what neither can buy. Consequences. My mother looked up at me, voice almost a whisper. She planned this. I smiled. She predicted you. The man in the charcoal suit held out his hand. Dr. Grant. My mother stood on unsteady legs. Patrice started crying. Darius looked like he might throw up. And as they were escorted away down the aisle, past the silent, watching passengers, I leaned back in my seat and ordered dessert. Because revenge tastes best when it's served at altitude. Paris didn't greet them with romance. It greeted them with paperwork. By the time the wheels hit the runway, my mother's family healing trip had turned into a legal nightmare with a French backdrop. They weren't arrested on the plane, nothing that dramatic. But they were met. By officials. By representatives. By consequences dressed in suits. My mother called me from a private room at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Her voice was brittle. Amara, please. I didn't answer right away. Because the thing about people like my mother is they treat silence like violence. And after a lifetime of being forced to swallow my words, I enjoyed making her choke on mine. Say what you need to say, I finally replied. She inhaled shakily. You don't understand what you've done. This will ruin us. I laughed softly. No. You don't understand what you did. You ruined you. I just stopped cleaning up after you. Patrice grabbed the phone. Amara, sweetheart, this is too far. We're family. We can talk about it. We can. Patrice, I said calm. You once told me I was barely blood. Remember that. Silence. Now you want to be family because the bill came due. Darius's voice cut in low and panicked. Amara, I swear I didn't know it would. I interrupted. Darius, you knew. You just thought you'd win. He exhaled sharply. What do you want? And there it was. Finally. The real question. Not why did you hurt us? Not please forgive us. Not we're sorry. What do you want? I smiled. I want my grandmother's legacy protected, I said. I want my name cleared. I want every cent you touched returned. And I want you to understand that you don't get to punish me for being chosen. My mother's voice turned cold. So you're doing this because you're jealous. I laughed. Jealous of what, Mom? Your marriage that died quietly? Patrice's fake businesses? Darius's inspirational quotes and unpaid bills. She sucked in a breath. I continued, voice still steady. I'm doing this because you tried to steal my life, and I decided to stop letting you. Then I said the part I'd waited years to say. You taught me how to survive you. Grandma taught me how to beat you. The call ended with my mother sobbing. And for a second, I felt the old ache. The old girl inside me who used to want her mother's love. But that girl didn't run my life anymore. I did. Over the next weeks, everything unfolded like a well-written thriller. Malcolm filed motions. Banks froze accounts. Audits began. Emails surfaced. Transfers traced. My family tried to spin it publicly at first. Of course they did. They told people I was mentally unwell. They hinted I was greedy. They suggested Grandma Evelyn had been manipulated. So I released a statement. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just facts. Receipts. A timeline. A clean explanation that even the nosiest church auntie could understand. And when the dust settled, something delicious happened. People stopped calling my family powerful. They started calling them reckless. Then shady. Then embarrassing. The Grants didn't just lose money. They lost control. My mother resigned from her clinic board. Patrice quietly sold some of her jewelry, because diamonds don't sparkle as much when you're pawning them. And Darius? He tried to rebrand on social media, posting about accountability and growth, like he wasn't the same man who tried to steal from an estate and then whined on a plane. But the final knife? The final twist? That came months later. Because Grandma Evelyn's contingencies included one last surprise. The clinics, her true pride, didn't go to me outright. Not permanently. They went into a trust. And the only way to remain involved in them was to meet a set of requirements. Transparency, ethics training, board approval, no financial misconduct. Guess who didn't qualify? My mother, Patrice, Darius. They were locked out of the legacy they claimed to love. And me? I became the steward. Not because I wanted the spotlight, but because Grandma Evelyn knew I'd protect what she built. The day I sat in the boardroom, my boardroom now, Malcolm slid a final document across the table. A letter, he said. From Evelyn. For you. I opened it and read in silence. Then I smiled through tears I didn't bother hiding. Because this wasn't a punishment letter. It was a love letter. In Grandma Evelyn's language. Strategy. Trust. Truth. It ended with one line that I carry like a blade tucked into my pocket. You were never the family's spare. You were their consequence. I stood, looked out at the city through the glass, and felt something I'd never felt around my family before. Peace. Not the fragile kind. The kind you earn. The kind you win. And as for Paris? I did go. Just not with them. A year later, I flew first class again alone. I drank champagne without shaking hands nearby. I watched the clouds from 35,000 feet and laughed softly to myself. Because somewhere on a plane once, my family tried to launch a revenge plot against me. And mid-flight, it unraveled. Not because I fought louder. Not because I begged harder. But because I planned better. And I landed exactly where they never wanted me to be. Above them. Please click the subscribe button, like, share and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also, let's know where you are watching from. Thank you and see you in the next story.